say the dead don't carry their secrets to the grave. Instead, they leave them lingering in the air, waiting for someone to read them. On a stormy night in Austin, Texas, inside an old church mortuary smelling of camphor and cold stone, retired forensic pathologist Dr. Eleanor was preparing the body of a wealthy woman. She had no idea that this cold corpse was about to tell the most gruesome story of family betrayal in the city's history. The victim didn't utter a word, but she left a single small clue on her left index finger, a smudge of blue ink that hadn't quite dried. How could a woman who died in a deep hospital coma sign her property away while on her way to the grave? Margaret lived a life many dreamed of. She was the lady of the land, owning vast horse ranches that stretched as far as the eye could see. But her wealth was a curse that haunted her even to her deathbed. When Margaret suddenly collapsed from a stroke, it wasn't grief that clouded the home of her brother-in-law Thomas. It was the stench of greed. Thomas, a man who had wasted his life in gambling dens and drowned in debt, saw Margaret's coma as his final lifeline. He watched the life support monitor's pulse, not praying for her recovery, but waiting for that green line to go flat so his reign could begin. The body arrived at the church mortuary where Eleanor volunteered. The room was silent, save for the hum of old fluorescent lights and the rhythmic drip of water into the metal sink. Margaret was accompanied by her two heartbroken daughters, Thomas, his son Jack, who nervously rubbed his hands, and Margaret's sister, Sarah. Eleanor asked everyone to wait in the foyer, but Sarah insisted on staying to help. Sarah was pale, her eyes darting anxiously, and her hands shook uncontrollably. Eleanor noticed that Sarah constantly positioned herself as a human wall between the doctor and the left side of the body. In a moment of quiet, as steam rose in the cold room, Eleanor moved the shroud to wash the left hand. Her blood ran cold. There, on the index finger, was a vivid, fresh blue ink stain. Eleanor froze. A woman in a coma doesn't hold a pen, and the dead don't touch ink, she thought. She wiped the finger with a white cloth, and it came away stained with the color of betrayal. She looked at Sarah, who collapsed onto the cold stone floor, sobbing silently. In that moment, Eleanor realized this mortuary had turned from a place of farewell into a crime scene.
Please, I didn't do anything. Help me.
Behind bars and in the ruthless interrogation rooms, Sarah began to tell a story that surpassed any horror movie. Thomas wasn't just a greedy relative. He was a monster who ruled his family with an iron fist. For years, he had brainwashed his son Jack into believing Margaret had stolen their inheritance. The true crime happened inside the hearse, a cramped, dark space smelling of death. While the vehicle made its way from the hospital to the mortuary, Thomas and Jack climbed into the back with Sarah and the corpse. There, under a dim light, Jack brutally struck his mother, Sarah, threatening to send her after her sister if she didn't take the dead woman's cold hand, dip the finger in ink, and press it onto the forged transfer papers. Sarah confessed, screaming. Jack was laughing hysterically as he watched his aunt's finger leave that blue mark, while I was dying of terror and shame in front of my sister's body. But Detective Miller wasn't satisfied with just the forgery charge. Forensic intuition suggested a missing link. Why did Margaret's heart suddenly stop after showing signs of improvement? A meticulous re-examination of the body and hospital surveillance footage revealed the hideous truth. The moment Sarah stepped out to get coffee for Thomas, he slipped into the intensive care unit like a shadow of death. He found Margaret with her eyes open, starting to regain consciousness, fearing his scheme would be exposed if she spoke. Thomas, with the cold-bloodedness of a professional killer, disconnected the oxygen and smothered her with a pillow until she stopped moving. He killed her twice, once by stealing her breath, and once by stealing her daughter's inheritance. The city of Austin was shaken to its core. Thomas stood before the judge, his calm demeanor failing to save him. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection, leaving the world with the same coldness with which he killed Margaret. Jack, the son who stripped himself of humanity and struck his mother over his aunt's corpse, was sentenced to 17 years in prison. As for Sarah, the court showed mercy given the extreme physical and psychological coercion she endured. She was welcomed by Margaret's daughters into their home, where she now watches the sun rise over the land that treachery almost swallowed. Margaret was finally buried under an ancient oak tree on her ranch, but her story wasn't buried with her. The tale ended, but the smell of camphor in Eleanor's mortuary remains a reminder to all. Greed may blind the eye, and violence may silence the tongue, but in the silence of death, there is always a blue smudge that refuses to be erased until justice is served.